Firing managers of Reddit, what was your favorite firing? For more infotainment, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get new video updates. Thanks for watching. I had a repo man working for me who was enormous, and had some anger issues. He'd stopped making his daily runs, and was turning in false trip reports. I called him into my office to discuss the situation with him, and it rapidly turned into him yelling at me, including phrases like "You're not my dad." Weird. I know. Anyway, my boss came in to try to calm him down, and told him to go home, and then come back the next morning to discuss the situation. As soon as the repo man was gone, I told my boss that I was firing him if he came back. My boss told me that he'd take care of it because thing would get too messy if I did it, which may have been accurate at that time. I was instructed to stay home the next morning so that the boss could talk to the repo guy. I came in at around 10:30 a.m., and there were 3 cop cars in our parking lot, and as I walked up to the building, our repo man was being dragged out in cuffs, and cursed out one of our salespeople who just happened to be walking by. When I got inside, I found the boss office thoroughly trashed, with chairs and paperwork everywhere. I'm sure glad that I wasn't there to make things messy. The repo man called another manager who was a friend of mine looking for a job the next week. Used to manage a pizzeria. Had a shift leader that told me he needed to leave because his son went to the ER. This was like 10 minutes into his shift. I let him leave and closed the store myself. His wife came in to pick up his paycheck a few days later and I asked if everything was okay with their son after the ER visit. She had no idea what I was talking about. Fired him 10 minutes into his next shift. Pro tip: make sure you get your SO on board when telling your boss your kid went to the emergency room to skip out of work. Edit: the dude was generally to begin with, but I didn't think he would stoop that low. He admitted he lied when I called him on it, only after that was he fired. Make sure you give an excuse that doesn't merit a follow-up question because a toddler in the ER certainly does. Oh, I hope I'm not too late. We had a contractor at my old job, call him Jay, who was basically leaving for most of the day and working on other clients' projects on our company's time. The day he was supposed to be canned, Jay's company's manager came by with an ice cream cake as a thanks for your business treat for our team. Our manager put the cake in the break room, sent out an email to draw people out of the cube town, and used it as a cover to confiscate Jay's laptop and escort him out of the building. Jay's manager inadvertently provided ice cream to celebrate his firing. It was delicious. I fired this girl without the permission of my company once. Essentially, I had been told to hold on to a freelancer through the holiday push, utilizing her desire to get a full-time role to ask her to sacrifice her own Christmas to make up for all the extra work of the season, e-commerce. I was informed that we weren't going to offer her a full-time job, though, and I knew she had another full-time offer with the other company she was freelancing for. She'd been holding out to work at my company, and was at risk of losing the other offer while she was waiting to see what my company would do. Of course, they hadn't told her they weren't going to hire her, they instead asked me to imply that she would get an offer with a good enough holiday push. They were going to say any amount of work she did wasn't enough to get the offer, and let her lose a real offer in the meantime. I essentially pulled her into an office and told her it was in her best interest to accept the other offer and to quit on the spot. I was pulled into a room with the CEO and some others to justify why she'd quit after talking to me, but I just couldn't have it on my conscience. She took the other job and we made it through holiday without her. I managed the team she was freelancing for, so I absorbed most of that extra work, but I'm so glad I chased her away instead of lying to her. I realized the hard way that companies will do that to you. I gave up a naval contract job with security clearance. This well-known consumer's electronic company offered me what I thought was my dream job, making promises of full-time, this and that. Me and the rest of our team was laid off from our position in 2 weeks after utilizing our skills for a beta testing. They just called us not to return. Not even the chance or instructions to pick up our belongings. It was a pretty procedure. I tried to get back to TE naval job, learned the hard was that it's a one-time thing for those government recruiters. Once they extend you an offer you should grab it, and they literally have a blacklist record. Beck, I turned them down on short notice. Missed a career opportunity on that one, sad face. You were a great chap to help that girl out. FYI. Karma on the company that screwed us. They had to sell the company and did massive layoffs. The project we worked on got cancelled. They also lost the super posh HQ they had where I used to work, and heard they had massive issues with hostile work environment in the workplace. My absolute favorite was a guy my boss hired who was an absolute whiz in the shipping department. He'd find people on the golf course, talk with them while golfing, and hire them. The guy comes in and I learn he's been hired with a quick phone call to my GM, so I get all his paperwork filled out and send it over to HR, give him a good orientation on the company rules, break times, lunch, etc., then walk him back to shipping. Jake is my manager back there and a good guy. He's not the fastest, but he shows up every day, does an adequate job, almost never makes a mistake, and if he does, he fixes it without being a little. I hand off the new guy and go back to work. A little over an hour later it's break time and I go see how the new guy is doing. I stop in with Jake and he says the new guy is out back and says nothing more. I find the new guy out back smoking a bowl. He looks up at me, clearly stoned, and says, "Hey computer dude. What's happen?" Me, "Come on up front. I need to fill out some paperwork on you. I'm letting you go for violating our drug policy, the policy I read to you about 90 minutes ago." Him, "Dude, that's up. I quit. I worked at a video store in high school/college, and if you put a note about a customer in the system, it would flash at you on the screen when you brought up their account. It was supposed to be for stuff like do not rent to customer's brother, but of course we used it to make fun of people. One of the guys who came in somewhat frequently had the last name Korn. Like that band. And so the note we put in the system said at 0:50, for reference, so when you pulled up his account, that flashed at you for the entire transaction. Mr. Korn came in just infrequently enough that we would all forget that we'd put that note there, and it would be funny all over again. It was the gift that kept on giving, at least until he stopped coming in, probably because none of us could keep a straight face when on his account screen. I'm not a firing manager, but I aided in the firing of one woman. I was working in a restaurant in a small town at the time, so everyone knows each other's business. Or so I'd think. They hire this lady named Jenna, we'll call her. No one knew of her history but me. She and her husband stole hundreds of dollars worth in tools from my dad's auto mechanic shop 5 years back. She also will purposefully trigger her son's autistic attacks in public as a distraction to steal things. Anyway, I was super nervous as I had to train her, and she knew damn well whose daughter I am. She played dumb and I played dumb back. I decided I'd give her a second chance, maybe she got clean and needed one. I was wrong. Money would fall out of her bra all the time. We were hostesses, so we didn't get direct tips, even after she'd put her wallet away. She also chased a customer down for a smoke, aka pills, and was so loopy she had to get sent home. They were gonna train her to be a manager. Finally, the other managers caught on she was stealing the waitresses' tips after bussing tables, and I came forward. She never realized in her drugged up state they had cameras everywhere, and I was able to identify when and where she was stealing. She got fired that night. That's what you get for stealing from my dad. Also, she introduced me to a Hell's Angel leader. His wife asked if I would join an MLM with her. I've never noped so quickly in my life.